Good morning, everyone. This is Juan from Juan's Garage, and this is your garage tip of the day. So today we're going to change the oil on the 2002 Ford Expedition. And before we get started, first thing we got to do is see how the tire is pointed straight. We got to start the truck or the Expedition, and we got to turn it all the way to the right. And you'll find out later. So here we go. First things first, open the garage door, start the car, turn the steering wheel all the way to the right. Okay, so now the reason why we start the car and we turn the wheels all the way to the left is you want to, and I said right earlier. Yeah, I just woke up a little groggy, but here goes. Anyway, you want to turn the wheel all the way to the left, and I'll tell you a little later why we do that, all right? But so now you let the car sit, let the oil drain down to the bottom of the engine oil pan, and you get your tools and all your other stuff ready to do the job. Okay, next thing you want to do is a couple safety items. Make sure you're in the park position. Your transmission is in the park position so it won't roll away. We don't have to jack up the car for this, okay? So while we're here, we're going to go ahead and pop the hood, or just pull the hood release lever. Okay. Like I said, we're not going to jack up the car today, but just make it a habit of chalking your tires. They have better chocks, but I use little 4x4s. They do the trick. I'll do an experiment with those later, see how well it holds up. And then you chalk the other tire as well. So here's something I do. I wrote down when I change the oil in the vehicle. I don't always write it down, but every 5,000 miles I change the oil. So it takes 6 quarts of oil. Your torque on your oil drain plug is 20 foot-pounds when you tighten it up. The wrench to take off the nut or the drain plug is 16 millimeter. And I use a Fram series of oil filters, so it's a Tough Guard 2 that I use, okay? I like to use the Tough Guard because it has this grip coating on the rear end of it. So when you put your filter wrench on, then it grabs on there. And, there are videos regarding what's the better oil filters for your vehicles. I've been using these Frams for years, and for what I do, they do the trick. They're not a bad price, and like I say, I change the oil every 5,000 miles, so it does the trick. But like I said, mostly for the only reason I like this coating. The wrench grabs on it easier, and it's easier to spin on and spin off. All right, guys, this is the 16 millimeter wrench, 3/8 drive ratchet. And always bring a cheater bar with you, okay? Put the cheater bar on the ratchet for a little bit of extra torque. Now, I've had this set here since 1987. It's done me really well. It's Craftsman. I've got some Snap-on and I've got some Proto stuff too, but in the garage here for what I do, this does the trick. If you take care of your tools, they'll last you a lifetime. So like I say, since 1987, what is that? Well, 2027, it'll be 40 years, so almost there. Okay, guys, this is basically what you need, okay? You've got your torque wrench. More of this later if you've never used one of these. This is your 3/8 drive with your 16 millimeter socket on there. Now this guy is an 93 millimeter filter wrench, okay? Use him to take the filter off. An extension if you need it, maybe. Your cheater bar, pair of gloves, roll of shop towels. Go ahead and peel off about 4 or 5 of these because you're going to use them up. And then your oil drain pan. I like this type of oil drain pan because it's wider, bigger. It captures the oil nicely, doesn't flow over. And remember to pull this tab so that as the oil goes in, the air will push out and this doesn't overflow, okay? Today I'm using this stuff here. My son bought it the other day. I don't know why I bought it, but I do use a synthetic motor blend, 5W20. And like I said, I usually use Castrol GTX. Castrol's been good, doesn't break down as quickly. But like I say, changing the oil every 5,000 miles, it doesn't really matter. I'm not an oil expert, and there's oil studies out there on the web. You can check those out, whatever your oil preference is. Okay, and one thing too about this filter here is we'll take a little bit of oil and you put on your finger and you're going to dress the seal. Put a little bit of oil on the seal before you install it so that it doesn't stick to the engine frame. And that's just a thing that mechanics have been doing over the years. Now some guys will also, they'll fill this thing up before they install it. This thing goes in sideways. So if you fill it up and you turn it sideways, you're going to spill your oil out. I've never done it, and it's worked for me. This car's got about 210,000 miles on it now, and you know, over 42 oil changes. I've never had an issue with it, okay? All right, so that's that. Now let's go in. We're going to go under the car. We're going to drain the oil, and that's the next step. Also, set yourself up with some lighting. You know, these things, you can use this style, or I even use one of these spot lamps just to get some light underneath. You don't need a whole lot of light, but for the purpose of the video. Now, I'm not jacking up the car because it's a snug fit, but there's plenty of room. I just put a piece of cardboard underneath there and lay on the cardboard. It works out great. There's no need for a creepy crawler. I got one of those crawlers crawl underneath. You can jack up the car, but you know, just not having to jack up the car saves time, and you also don't have to worry about the level of your engine where the oil is going to drain to one side, not going to drain out. It's mostly level, so it should, I'm going to say, you know, over 90% of the oil is going to drain out of the oil pan. All right, let's get started. Okay, so underneath the car, it's more facing the passenger side. You're going to see that drain plug right there, okay? That's the drain plug. So that's the one we're going to take off. Pause the video. Okay, your ratchet on the nut, and once again, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So in this case, we're going to go counterclockwise, pulling up, okay? Here we go, pulling up. And once you break it loose, take the wrench off, put your drain plug here in the way, and then you can take it off by hand. Well, maybe I need a little more on there. Okay, once you get it to the point where you can take it off by hand, just unscrew it. And you're gonna get a stream of oil come out. Oh yeah, the important thing also I forgot to mention, do this when the engine is not hot, okay? If you run the car, let it cool down for a little bit, a couple hours maybe. Shit, I dropped the plug. Where's my drain plug? Okay, here's my drain plug. And that's it. You see how dark and dirty the oil is? So definitely after 5,000 miles, it needed to be changed. Here's your pan filling up. All right. Okay, guys. So this is the torque wrench. Okay, don't know if you've ever used one. If you haven't, you'll have markings on one side that say foot-pounds. And this is where you make your adjustment. You see the 0 mark here? And these little tiny lines? don't know if I can zoom in there very well enough to see it. But you're going to twist this until the line marks up with the 20 value, okay? I'm going to set that. Okay, so you see how the 0 mark is set up to line up to the 20 line and the little squiggly how it comes down. Now it's set for 20 foot-pounds torque, and I'll try to simulate what happens. When you tighten your drain plug, you'll feel the torque wrench click, okay? I'll try to demonstrate that. All right, so I have the torque wrench here connected to the 3/8 drive with a 3/8 socket connecting both those. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push down here. You hear that click? That's when you know you've got the value that you set on your dial. That's when you've met that amount of force, okay? Or torque, as they say. Okay, so here it goes again. You hear that click? That's when you know you've tightened your drain plug tight enough. Okay, you feel it. Okay, so this is your oil drain plug. This is what it looks like, okay? You want to keep it clean. Now you see that rubber O-ring there? That gets compressed when you tighten it up. Now over time, that O-ring may lose its ability to seal properly. And I've tried to find replacement O-rings. I've never found one. What you end up having to do is buy this whole drain plug unit, because the drain plug will come with a new O-ring. So when you start to see a little bit of oil film or a drop of oil collecting around the drain plug, it's time to get a new one. Okay, so now you're at a point where you're just barely dripping a little bit. You can take a paper towel and wipe around here. Make sure you don't have any dirt or grime. And you take your drain plug and just set them back in and twist them on. Now you don't want to over tighten this drain plug, because if you do, you can strip the threads in your oil pan. And then you'll have to either, clean up the threads, drill and tap it or whatever, or you might have to get a whole new oil pan, okay? So see, just hand tight, it's not going to drain anymore. But take your 16mm nut or ratchet, get it on there, and just get it snug. Snug my hand. Get your drain pan out of the way. I'm going to stop this for a minute. Well, let's see. Here goes. Okay, now you put your torque wrench on here. Now you don't have to have a torque wrench. Just snug this up nicely, okay? So here it goes. You're going to hear it click. Hear that? And that's it, okay? One more time. You hear it clicking. It's not turning anymore, but that's 20 foot-pounds torque, okay? That's all it needs. If you don't have a torque wrench, you can just do it by hand. Make it nice and firm. Don't go gorilla on it, because once again, you can pull the threads in here. And then you have to have well, you have to repair it. All right, I always, this is an older vehicle, so it does get oil film. I always wipe it down. And okay, so now we're done with that. Next is we're gonna remove the oil filter. Oh, man. Okay, so I don't know if we can see this. There's your oil filter right there, okay? Now, Ford did a nice thing where they have this little drain pan, and if I could point to it, let's see guys, give me a second here. Okay, so on the driver's side of the engine, there is your oil filter right here, okay? Now Ford did a nice thing. They put a little drain pan right beneath it. And that's this guy. So when you take off the oil filter, the oil is going to drain down here and straight down into your drain pan. Okay? Kind of hard to see, but you take your oil filter wrench, get it on the back side, get it on there nice and firm. And then you take your ratchet, make sure it's for lefty-loosey. Let's see if I can get it on there. No, you don't have to seat it on there all the way. Okay, I'm trying to do this. I think I got it on there. Come on now. Maybe not. All right, I'm gonna get this started and then I'll show you guys how it comes off. Okay, so once you break your filter free, you should be able to turn it by hand. Okay, turn it by hand and it'll start dripping oil, okay? Because although you drained all of the oil out of the engine oil pan, it didn't drain out of the filter, okay? So see how it catches in that little drain pan right there and it drips straight down? Position your oil pan nicely to catch it. Okay, now I had an issue taking the oil filter out with the wheels lined up straight with the car. That's why I say turn the wheels all the way to the right or to the left, I guess. That'll get this linkage out of the way, and then you can get the oil filter out. If not, it won't come out. I've had to take it out of the sidewall of the tire over here, you know, which is a real pain. So just remember to turn your wheels so that you can get this oil filter out of there, okay? So once it drains most of the oil, okay, then you kind of twist it and you bring it down and it goes here nicely in between the steering linkage. And then just invert it and let it drain the rest of the oil out of here into your pan, okay? Now, I don't know what's happening here, but it's a little messier than it should be. So I'm gonna wipe that off. I don't know what happened. Another thing I wanna tell you is make sure that the oil filter gasket or O-ring comes off of the face here, okay? Make sure it doesn't stick on there. If not, you're gonna put your new oil filter on there. It's not gonna seal properly, and you're gonna have a big mess on your hands, okay? So I'm gonna wipe that down, and then we'll go on to the next part. Okay, now we gotta address the seal here on the new oil filter. So what I do is I'll just stick my hand in here, grab a little bit of that oil that drained off, and I'll just put it around the seal, okay? Nothing to it, just doesn't need to be soaking, just a little bit of oil, okay? From here, put it around the seal. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a little moist, okay? Just a little moist, that's all you need. You don't have to have this thing dripping, just a little bit of oil on it, and that'll keep it from sticking on the engine. I don't know, older mechanics, they've always done that. So what's tried and true, you do it. Okay, now I'm going to reinstall it. So you want to keep your drain pan in position until you reinstall the new filter, because it'll keep dripping underneath. Let's see here if I can catch it. Yeah, it'll have a few little drops and it might still drip. So the whole point of this is to not make a mess. All right. Okay, once again, with the wheels turned, the linkage, this linkage here will shift, and it'll give you room to take your filter, guide it back in. Where am I going? Okay. I don't know if you can see this, but okay, guide it back in. Once you get it on, you'll feel it seat itself. Do not cross thread this. This thing should spin freely like this. Do not cross thread it. Okay, now once it makes contact, they tell you to go 1/3 or 1 full turn, okay? So you see this here, it's spinning freely. Once it makes contact, right there you feel it, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find my Sharpie that I threw over here somewhere. I'm gonna mark that filter, okay? Put a mark here, okay? So when I spin that thing, it comes back around, I know I've had 1 full turn, okay? Or you can go 3/4 turn. Okay, now by hand, I can't turn it anymore by hand. All right, so now, put my wrench back on here. I'm gonna pause for a second. Okay, so I tightened it with the filter socket, and it got pretty tight, and I felt it. So if you can see it where my thumb is right here, that's my mark, and that's enough. This would have been, 1 full turn, and that's 3/4. 3/4 felt tight enough for me, okay? It's kind of a feel thing. You don't have to crank this super tight because you'll squeeze out the gasket, and that should be all right. Now I'm gonna wipe down the area a little better. There shouldn't be a whole lot, even though this is an older engine, it shouldn't be whole lot of oil here. But I got some oil film around this area right here. And I don't know if this seal is leaking for this sensor or where it's coming from. I'll have to keep an eye on that. But anyway, so now you've changed the oil filter, you're good. Now it's time to add the oil back into the engine. One more thing I forgot to mention is the little oil drip pan right below the oil filter. I like to wipe this guy out here because he gets full of oil when you drain it. So you wipe him down. That way you don't have any residual oil leaking over time and dripping in onto your garage floor, okay? So wipe that little oil pan down. That's a good tip there, okay? All right. Okay, so now it's time to refill the oil. The oil is going to be, the oil fill cap is going to be on the passenger side of the engine and right next to your battery. You can see while you're in here, do some, just quick eyeballs. This is my negative and it's my positive clamp. I put those little pads on there. It keeps them from getting all crusted up. 90% of the time, why your car won't start is due to a dead battery, okay? 90% of the time, right? So on these caps, they'll also tell you what kind of oil you need. 5W20. We got here 5W20. Put your oil spout there. Now, if you're really good, you don't even need a, oh man, you don't need a, what the hell do you call these things? You don't need a funnel if you're really good. And some guys don't, they just pour it straight in. But I usually don't make a mess, but any oil you drip is gonna later on get hot and it's gonna smell like burned oil in your engine. So just try to not make a mess, okay? Now, I'm gonna pour this in. Once again, this is 5 quarts, so we'll go 5 quarts out of this guy, and then we'll add another quart from this guy down below, okay? Here we go. So let's see if I can film this. Whoa, okay, here we go. Now these containers, sometimes when it's full, you start by pouring it sideways, it doesn't come out all as bad. Anyway, you'll figure it out. Okay, so I put the 5 quarts in there. Now you see these usually have liters on one side, quarts on the other side. So we're gonna use this side here. So after adding 5 quarts, we need 1 more quart. So now we're at 3.5. So I'm gonna pour in enough till we get to the 2.5 point, okay? And that'll be my 6th quart of oil, right? Now just remember to take your reference at the same place. You know, if you put it on the hood of the car or under the hood of the car, that's where you're gonna reference it. That way you don't get an odd reading. But once again, if you go a little over, a little under, it's not gonna hurt the engine. You'll be all right. Okay, here we go. Okay, there we are. We're at about 2.5, which is once again good enough. Now we'll start the engine and we'll let the oil filter fill up, and then we'll take a reading with the oil dipstick and see how we look. And we'll check underneath the car for any oil leaks. Okay, so before we start the car, it goes without saying, right? Remove your God, I keep forgetting what the hell they call these things. Oh, really? That's what happens when you try to do this stuff one-handed. Okay. All right, and then don't forget to put the cap on. If you forget to put the cap on, you're gonna have oil spraying out of here, and you'll get your engine compartment full of oil. It's not gonna spray out, but it'll, you know, mist out, sprinkle out. Okay. And as always, check around, see if you got any oil leaks or not. All right. Okay, remember I wanted to test the chocks to see how good they work. Now, I replaced some fence posts and I had some of that 4x4 left over. So what do you do with those leftover little blocks of wood? You can use them for anything. And now they work really good for wheel chocks, okay? Yeah, they have better ones and whatever, but I said, you know what, let's do a little video. And so the car is in neutral right now, and I'm yanking on the car. You see that? And this ain't going anywhere, okay? So these chocks do the trick. I'm just in the garage, but rocking the car back and forth. It ain't going anywhere, okay? Anyway, just get a habit of putting something behind the wheel so the car doesn't roll away if you're ever working on it. Okay guys, when you're done with this, you want to dispose of everything properly, okay? So here's something to see. You got your seal. It came with a filter when you took it off. That's a good sign. I like to use the towels that I used earlier to wipe this drain pan down. And remember, be friendly to the environment. Recycle your oil. If you take this back down to the local auto parts, they have a big tank where they'll pour all the used oil in and it gets recycled. And they make you maybe sign a little sheet that says who you are and how many quarts you're going to deposit or gallons, whatever. Nothing to it. It's good for the environment. In the old days, guys used to dig a hole in their backyard, the corner of their backyard, and they used to just dump it in there. Right? We don't do that anymore. We're more conscious about our water tables and the environment. So just take it down to the oil parts, auto parts, and drain it there. And when you come back, once again, you can check for more leaks. Make sure you did the job right. And save yourself a lot of money doing it yourself. So you take this guy here with you to the auto parts. You take him with you. Now the reason why I tape the paper towel around this, because this thing will drip. The little caps are kind of cheap and flimsy. But I do like this larger size of drain pan. Catches things easier. Remember, wipe your tools down. You got them ready to use the next time around. Nice and clean, and they'll last you forever. Like I said, I've had my tools even before 1987. They'll last you a lifetime. Just take care of them, don't lose them, put them back where they belong, and they'll treat you right. Okay, so on the driver's side of the engine, you're gonna see what you call the engine oil dipstick, okay? So you take this little guy out. And you see what the oil level is like, okay? Hard to kind of tell, but now there it is, okay? You see the level? It's right about at full or at max. I'm gonna wipe it off and we're gonna test it again, okay? So wipe it off clean, reinsert it, and test it. Okay, I wiped off the dipstick, reinserted it, bottom it out. Pull it out here again. And take a look at it horizontally. And it's hard to get a good read on this, but you can see where we are. All right, looks pretty good. We're not at the little max hole, but we're right at about the top of the serrations, which is good, okay? You don't want to overfill it if you don't have to, but looks good to us, okay? So later on, after you run your car for a couple thousand miles, check the oil on it. You might have to add some. The engine, well, this engine has 210,000 miles and it hardly burns any oil. And that's because I change the oil every 5,000 miles. The oil's good, change the filter, you do it yourself, and you save yourself about $80. The reason why I'm doing this video is my son, his friend from college, took his car to get an oil change and they charged him $80. And I'm like, what? Man, you can buy the oil and the filter at Walmart, you know, pick it up there. You get your oil, for 30 bucks and filter for about $30, $35. Anyway, you save yourself $50 by doing this yourself. So you want to save some money, make sure it's done right, and you use your, oil of preference. Do it yourself. If I didn't film this, it'd take me like maybe 30 minutes to do the whole thing, okay? Once again, make your little notes, write down, when it's due and how many quarts of oil, what kind of filter, the foot-pounds for your torque on your thing. Okay, in this case, it's a Fram. I use the TG2 series, and it's a 16 millimeter socket for the drain plug. Okay, so that's it. Guys, that was the garage tip of the day. Hope you enjoyed it. This is Juan from Juan's Garage signing out. Have a great day, and if you got something to add to this video, just put it in the comments below. We all get better by sharing, all right? Have a great day. See you guys.